thanks so much for everyone jumping on. We've got some wicked artists to dump in today. So our 4 artists here. Final Export, episode 4. Teens on Acid, a fellow Australian. I've got a very old friend, or a recent kind of friend that I've kind of built here online, and that's Axel. Excited to have you here, brother. Aspenth, which I was... through my Twitter post that I put out the other day, I've now basically been building a fucking artist directory, mostly built on Phantom, but Aspenth is one of those people who I've stumbled across and kind of blown my mind in many, many ways. And, of course, Sick Individual. Same kind of deal, being introduced to artists all over the space. And yeah, it's another one that just kind of caught my eye. What I'm calling my crypto Dali, crypto Salvador.
Awesome.
Right. So I'm going to get on to first artist. Like I said, guys, I'm just going to dart between each artist, kind of give them an opportunity to kind of spell out their journey and what they do. And then after that, we'll open the floor up to a bunch of conversations and topics. So first up, Teens on Acid. I know you're the most washed up, so I thought I might get you up first, just because I don't want you falling asleep on us. It's a big.
I'm good, man. I've got my coffee here. I'm ready to go.
Amen, dude. I'm the same. So Teens on Acid is based on the Gold Coast here in Australia. He has an ongoing personal brand of his, which is an NFT collection. It's called Teens on Acid. It's and the TOA Club, which is the Teens on Acid Club, which is becoming a trading card game and a profile picture collection. So it's neo-pop art. He works with Illustrator and Photoshop, vectors, pixels, but also works with ink, acrylic, and graphite. I'll drop his Twitter and his Discord into the chat room right now, along with a very, very long array of his examples, but I might do that as you're talking. Essentially, there's some dates coming up, the club, the Teens on Acid Club literally dropped yesterday. So I'd love you to take an opportunity to kind of talk about what that's all about and how that's going.
Sure.
My main question to kind of kick you off is, it seems like, on my assumption, it seems like the amount of work and everything you've given me, it's like you've been doing this obviously a very, very long time. It's a very, very distinct style. It's fucking awesome. Have you been transitioning into the NFT space through contract work? Can you tell us all about how long this has been what you do and how new the NFT space is, like more of an adaptation of what you've already obviously been doing for so long? Tell us a bit about yourself, brother.
All right. Thanks, man. I'll try and be as concise and quick as I possibly can.
No, don't worry about it, dude. Just tell us. Talk as much as you want, man.
All right, cool. All right, so I've been in art and design I've been actively working in art and design for about 22 years. My first design job was in 1999, and I worked for a small web startup company. And I basically cut my teeth learning Photoshop and Illustrator while working for this company. I'm not trained at all. All my skills are self-learned and self-taught and learned on the job. I've had the opportunity to work with some incredible artists and designers over the years. So I'm a bit of a sponge. I just pick up whatever I can along the way. My style it's rooted within 80s and 90s cartoons, comics, Eastern and Western. I guess probably the first influence I had when I was growing up would have been Astro Boy. So I was immediately exposed to a Japanese style of illustration when it came to cartoons. That's always been a huge influence. Then I guess the second biggest influence would be Saturday morning cartoons like He-Man and Voltron and things like that that came up in the 80s and the 90s. So growing up, I was always interested in consumer culture, if you want to call it that, because I was exposed to brands that used cartoons as a gateway to get us to buy their action figures, right? Being young, that action figure mentality spoke to me as a young kid, and it sort of never really left. So it got me into comics. Cartoons have just always sort of been there as the thing that made me most happiest, right? Cartoons and comics. So that's basically how I started off. That's my influence, and that's the root of everything that I do, right? So I guess it was in the late 90s that I started to feel like I could possibly use art as a vehicle to drive me forward through life, possibly make money off it. My first design job was pretty dubious. It was in the adult content realm. So there was a lot of interesting content to create digital artworks with, if you want to put it that way.
So this is contract work that you obtained, right?
No, this is my first actual job. I had absolutely no experience. I'd been working at Sizzler, skating, smoking a fucking ton of weed, and I was always just drawing, and I needed something else. I had to get out of the Sizzler job, and a dude I was working with came home from uni one day and said, "Hey, there's this graphic design job. I think you should go for it." I turned up at this house. It was on one of the waterways in the Goldie, and it was just a couple of really stoned dudes who were ready to make some money off porn websites. And they gave me the job right there on the spot. And I used it as a learning experience. I used that job to figure out how to use Photoshop and Illustrator. That was back in 2000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's epic, man.
That's the birth of my career, basically, as a designer and an artist.
And where you are now, you say career. Like, is this career your current position? Are you do you regard yourself as completely solely run? Like you're just your own dude now. You're broken off. Like you've got your style. This is what you do as an artist. And is the NFT space kind of a part of that? Has it facilitated that independence or?
100%. It wasn't, the NFT space wasn't the reason that I quit my 9 to 5. I've had a bunch of 9 to 5s over the years. I usually spend about 4.5 to 5 years in a 9 to 5 until I feel like I've sort of hit my ceiling for that company and need to further myself and learn more, get more experience, and develop further as an artist. It got to maybe October last year, and I figured out that where I was probably the last job I was going to work at. I felt like I was getting to that point where my skills were at a level I felt like I could probably pursue art as a full-time career. So in March this year, I quit. I went in on a partnership in a company called PlexiPop, and we create, let me just drop a link. We create pop art graphics on acrylic skateboards, and pop art and neo pop art is our focus. This business is very, very young. It's in its infant stages. It's just something, excuse me, that I'm doing. Well, it started off as my priority in March, but it's definitely fallen to the back of the line because NFTs for me have picked up so much in the last probably 6 weeks since joining the auction house, Tombheads.
It's amazing. Okay, so Tombheads has been a big.
It is amazing, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Tombheads have been a big and another example of Tombheads being another big platform for artists, and yourself. Correct? It's
been absolutely incredible, the community and the support at Tombheads. There's two communities basically that have helped me realize that I have found my place here in the NFT space. It's Tomb Heads, and it's also the streetwear brand Mishka out of New York. I'm not sure if you guys know that one. They've been around since the early 2000s, and they just dropped their NFT project last week. They minted last week. But prior to that, they set their Discord up, and being a long-time fan, I joined up and pushed myself fully into that Discord and into that community. And I was rewarded with that dedication with a capsule collection on their website, and that then opened up the doors for their customers and their collectors to my work.
Huge.
And that's helped push my Acid Cats. The Acid Cat project is just something that I put together back in August. I've decided I was going to get into this NFT space. So that was my first major project. Still learning a lot about that, about how I can give back to the collectors who have invested in me. So it's a big journey, and there's a lot to learn. But man, I'm a sponge, so I'm here for it.
Well done, man. That's fucking terrific. And I think
thank you, bro.
Oh man, no thanks needed. You're doing the hard work. That's what it's all about. Hot Sauce is just asking here how, and I was literally going to ask the same thing, just to give you a moment to talk more about the specifics of the project that's actually available at the moment. How big will the Teens on Acid collection be on Paint Swap be? Is there a number
on Paint Swap? Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's it'll be capped at 99. Let me just load some images in here. So this project came about after a chat with Tombheads, actually, and this was after I think my first or second auction on their Discord, and he could see that I had a very distinct voice in my artwork, that I was bringing something to the table that nobody else really was, but he felt that I probably wasn't maximizing my potential within the space. So he urged me to think about not putting my ideas as an artist first and embracing original content a little bit more. Because this year I'd been on a bit of a trajectory where I've been creating artwork based solely on consumerism and existing content.
And characters
and
themes and stuff. Yeah.
And characters, yes. Yeah. And yes, very intentionally, very literally, all with the intention of creating a body of work for an art show in Melbourne next year, which I have booked in at Honeybones Gallery in March. So he felt that if I was to, because he obviously could see the potential, and he said, put all that aside and focus your energy on some original content and think about how that collection could also double as a PFP project. So during that conversation, my mind was ticking over constantly, and I thought, well, I'm a huge 80s, 90s kid. Collecting and trading cards was always a massive thing for me. I worked in a trading card store when I was a kid. So thinking about the garbage pail kids, I thought, well, why not create the Teens on Acid as a card set? Literally the Teens on Acid. So that's where this collection starts from. It's basically a trading card set / PFP set. There are rarities based only on physical traits. Every card's a one of one.
That's right.
There's no actual rarities in the set. The rarities on the card are just for aesthetic purposes. You know, it's just to add a cool nostalgic factor to it. The idea between the set is that with the rarities, we start at rare and we go up to a god tier. Let me just drop another file in just so I can give you guys a bit of a little rundown on this. Basically, the characters have taken a degree of acid, starting at 1 tab all the way up to the god tier has taken 99 tabs of acid, and the visual style of the character changes the more tabs they've had, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense.
So that in turn grants the rarity to the character.
That's
there's a little
brilliant.
bit of
That's
it.
brilliantly unique, man. I love that you've taken someone's advice and just gone, yeah, okay, I get it. This is my idea, and it's like, yeah, dude, sweet, you fucking nailed it. You know, like it's
Well, like midway through that convo, I had to cut him off. I was like, dude, I got to go. I've got it. I have to go draw.
That's
so all 99 of these are hand drawn, and then I color them in Photoshop and Illustrator.
Brilliant.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And then I've got some big ideas for this. I'd love to. I don't know if you guys are aware of a 2D fighting game engine called Mugen, but basically it's a Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter Alpha game engine that you can skin with pixel graphics. So I'm sort of thinking, if I can sell out this collection, I might be able to fund a skinning project on that and create a fighting game out of this. I absolutely want to print all of these as a set. I'm working with a new acquaintance I made over in the Mishka Discord. He wants to do the card backs of these and actually create storylines for each character.
Yeah, man. You are literally taking all the right steps. It's fucking incredible. I'm so keen on what you're doing, man. And that's
thanks, bro. Thank you.
Some pretty fat alpha you're dropping there about a fucking Street Fighter.
Dude, I think it would be an amazing. Like, I don't know if you guys ever played Pocket Fighter. It's like a super deformed chibi version of Street Fighter.
Yeah,
cool. And I can sort of see this shit working the same way. Amazing.
All right.
So I'm all in on this project. So I'll wrap it up there.
Oh, mate, I love it. It's fucking great. One thing I'm realizing, I had one of the guests kind of reach out last week. They were like, can we do like organize like a one-on-one? Because I could have fucking talked for 3 hours on that shit. And I was like, fuck.
For real, yeah.
It's something I'm going to look into in the next few weeks. But I'm going to move on to my next guest. Thanks so much.
Cool. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
That was insane. Yeah, this is Axel. Axel, how you doing, my brother? It's so good to have Axel here.
I'm doing fine. I'm over the moon, man.
Fuck yeah, dude. So I reached out on a couple of the kind of community boards in AVAX and kind of just put my hand out looking out for artists who are keen to kind of jump on this kind of thing. Axel reached out and we've kind of been back and forth in some pretty awesome conversation for a couple of weeks, sharing each other's works and stories and stuff. So Axel is, I've got a lot of questions for Axel, but essentially Axel is a contractor currently, and he works for a few projects. He's worked for Yeti Finance and More Money in the past, but he works full-time for Yield Yak. So he's the digital illustrator behind that project. He works with digital illustration and focuses personally, his focus is in comics and character design, and you can obviously see that through his work. Pencil and paper, I guess, is a part of your process. A lot like
it's my foundation.
There you go. Okay, pencil and paper is a foundation. He works with a crappy laptop, he says, with less than 8 GB RAM and an Intel i3 core processor. Piece of shit, in other words. Plus an XP-Pen Deco 3 tablet. And he uses a program called Clip Studio Paint. This is some of the most fascinating information I use. I've always been a Photoshop man. I've always been fortunate enough to have Apple software and all that sort of stuff. But I look at the quality of your work and I'm like, fuck, this is important to talk to. And this is important to give Axel a space to talk, because in people in all parts of the world who can't sometimes afford the top tier stuff, it does not fucking matter. It's all about your hand and it's all about your mind and how you fucking use the tools you're given. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. Can we talk about when did you first kind of get into the digital painting? Like it's such a verse style and you're so incredibly good at what you're doing. So when did this begin? when did this begin? How long has this journey been for you? And tell us a bit about the process behind your character creation and how you kind of approach each project.
Well, honestly, I must say that I'm not like one of those people who was always into art. when I was a kid, like my only focus was I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. But at the same time, I would be like, oh, look, you were painting all over on the walls. What do you do with? And it's like, I don't know, it's fun. So one day I went and I saw like, oh yeah, a digital painted artwork. I was like, hey, how can people do this on their computer and stuff? I was probably like 13 years old at the time. And I went and made a Google search. And there were these things called drawing tablets that seemed just so weird to me. But there was this program called Paint.sci. So this is a software that basically works in a way that you can use vectors on a raster layer. So because I was always drawing on paper, I would take a photo of what I drew, and then I would get into Clip Studio Paint and then use the mouse click by click, line arting it and coloring it. First, just using a common PC mouse, nothing fancy. And then I got into commissioning. And that was my I would say that was my very first art venture. Pun not intended. But yeah. Then I saw that many people was actually able to make some money with this. So I was like, okay, I will try doing commissions, as people call them. And I was just that, a 14-year-old with a pen and a piece of paper, just sketching stuff and then digitalizing with his mouse and delivering that art to my clients. And I can totally tell you that the art I made by that time was not pretty good, obviously. But it helped me get into all of this art community that I completely love, seeing other people with different styles and different visions on art. Then slowly I was building up my game. With the money of commissions, I bought myself my first drawing tablet. By the time I only had like a laptop with a 1 gigabyte of RAM. So it was a lot of struggle because in one hand, I had a lot of practice in traditional media like papers and stuff. But in the other hand, the software was always crashing. And it's like just spending days and weeks on just a single piece of work. But after that, I was just able to like build up my gear, and now I'm here with a slightly better computer and a slightly better tablet, working for this project. It's basically something unexpected because at the end I was able to make a living out of this. I never expected that. I live completely from my art. Okay. I got into many communities. It's such an adventure when I first got into digital art.
That's incredible, man. So you're saying you're working full time for the Yield Yak and all that sort of stuff, and you're basically living off this of what you're earning from these commission jobs, correct? That's fucking amazing, man. I would like to know if there's any plans for you integrating more of this style into like a personal collection at any point. I know that you've found some great success in the commission world with what you're doing. But yeah, have you put your brain towards, putting a personal collection together?
I will be really honest. When I got into all of this in the AVEX environment, that was pretty much an accident. Because at a certain point, I was frustrated because I wasn't able to find clients. Most of the people who always went back to me they were like, "Oh no, I don't have any money at the time," and I didn't have money because I need their money to have my money, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then a friend comes by and he's like, "Hey, you could work for a crypto project," and I'm like, "What's crypto?" And it was like 2 months ago, so yeah, I'm not very like versed in the NFT world and how it moves, but I do have a lot of ideas for projects involving NFTs because of my experience working for all these projects. So they just dropped me into that community built by Cryptofish and his wonderful Discord. I just went there and posted some of my art, and I got like 5 job requests, and that was amazing. I made my research. I learned what's a cryptocurrency, what are the environments, what's Avalanche about, and I want, as a first plan in a short term, I just sort of want to be part of the environment. I've never been keen to just a single project. I obviously work full time for Yield Yak, and those are awesome guys. I love their team, the way they work, their ideas, the concept behind their protocol. So yeah, I just want to have some art that it's immediately recognizable in a way that people can say, yeah, Axel drew that. Because in like 5 years of career, I just been doing some small commissions. I think it's just time for me to actually put myself out there. But yeah, I do have a lot of projects in mind for NFT projects, and I do want to be part of this new world of new art, and I'm pretty enthusiastic about it.
That's epic, man. Like teens on acid and both sick individual kind of talking exactly how like more distinct and how epic your style is. I think it's extremely distinct. I think that if what you're going for is to be distinct and be distinguishable, I think you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I think you should also consider maybe coming over and waving a hand around Phantom, man, because I mean, whilst I've made some incredible connections through AVAX and through their community, there is absolutely nothing that has compared so far to the community and the support level that you find on Phantom. So if it was, if you're in that stage of infancy where you're about to kind of like think of something or throw something out there, or, you know, you've got some sick art ideas, but you're lacking utility, like this is a chain that has got your motherfucking back. If you're talented and you're versed at what you're doing, it like catapults people like yourself, man.
Yeah, I need to, because I've been making a lot of connections lately, because this is a pretty recent job. My jobs before has just been like between certain communities, like people who like robots, people who like furries, people who, just really in close communities. I've never been into this kind of environment, but because it's pretty recent, I'm just networking right now. And I've been talking to guests that you've been having before, like Shauna. I think you had her in like the second edition of Final Expert.
Yeah.
She's a great artist too. And I am still learning, but I'm learning in a really fast pace. And I would say that by the next year, you might find me in that environment. You might find me in the Phantom.
That's epic, man. That's really good to hear. But at the end of the day, I believe we're all in the same boat, man. We're all new to this, and we're all going as probably faster than we can keep up. So yeah. You've got a family here waiting for you, man. That's all I'm saying. Thank you so much for that, Axel. That was absolutely epic, man. We're just going to move on to my next guest, dude. Thanks so much for your time and your insight, brother.
Sure.
Aspenth, how's it going, man? Are you with us? Have you got a cold beer or a coffee in hand?
Coffee. Always coffee.
Always coffee.
Can't get enough of it. I will drink coffee literally all day, every day if I could. And maybe eggnog too. Now that it's holiday season, I could easily chug a whole thing of eggnog if you dared me to.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm getting a great perspective on your character. That's awesome. Awesome, brother. Well, I would like throughout this process with you in particular, I'd love you to kind of add to the bank of stuff that you've given me, because you gave me a couple of videos and lots of stuff. I would love that to be dropped into the chat room if you can. I just had difficulty saving some of those on Twitter, and I just love a little bit more juicy content. But it's almost like you've really prepared yourself for this, which I'm really excited to kind of give you the floor. But I'll give you an introduction again. Okay, so I'll drop some links in the chat room, everyone. But Aspenth is a very different style to the different kind of artists that we've seen for the most part of this morning. He works in purely digital. All his artwork is digital 3D rendering, and compositioning software is what he uses. We're talking about After Effects, Cinema 4D, and of course Photoshop. He has 2 collections currently active out in the world. One collection is a family-friendly nostalgic, and the other one is like sort of macabre and dark. So there's quite a range of, I guess, styles and themes and moods that Aspenth plays with. His 2 collections are called Disturbia and Spiritopoly, which is actually mid-mint currently. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'd love to know how that's all going, and a bit more about the project. But my main question to you, Aspenth, before I give you, and feel free to just take the floor and kind of give everyone a perspective of, you know, your journey and your process. But I'd like to know if there's a history of sketching and physical, if that was like kind of what you did before you've been on the computer, or is it purely a digital relationship that you have with art? And another one thing I'd like you to get to is who creates the soundscapes for the Disturbia project. But yeah, give us a rendition of where you've come from and who you are, man. I'd love to know.
Yeah, so I've been a digital creator and filmmaker for about 10, 15 years now. It's not exactly where I thought I would end up, because there was a time in my life when I was really young that I did take art classes and did watercolor paintings with oil and similar mediums. Interestingly enough, when I was in college, I was actually supposed to be an art major, but I ended up procrastinating way too long signing up for classes. So when I went to enroll for like Digital Illustration 101, it was totally full, and I was crushed. So I instead enrolled in a filmmaking class, and I sort of fell in love with cameras and photography and narrative storytelling. So I ended up graduating as a film major. That's actually still what I do now to this day, working as a film editor in Hollywood. But NFTs have given me an outlet to sort of come full circle with my art and re-explore that world. And I think about where we're at now. It's absolutely bonkers to me how far we've come in such a short time, because for basically as long as I've been in the creative entertainment industry, artists and photographers and filmmakers have been really among the only class of people who are somehow expected to do their work for free or quote unquote for exposure. So this whole NFT renaissance, as it were, where people are suddenly crawling all over each other to acquire limited edition artwork, is not only insane, but it just makes me insanely happy. It really is a total paradigm shift for artists to create whatever they want and know that they're plugged into a global community that is so eager to spend money on it. Truth be told, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But then again, show me something that does make sense in crypto, I guess.
I love it.
And so my first foray into phantom NFTs was actually with Spirit Swap shortly after they launched in April, May, somewhere around that timeline. They were holding a contest to design some kind of artwork using their brand new mascot, who we now all recognize as Sully. And so I entered. Didn't really think too much of it, but my entry was actually narrowed down into the top 3. And then they took those designs from 3 different artists and they offered them for sale on ZooCoin. And the most popular one became the resident artist for Spirit Swap. And fortunately, that ended up becoming me. So it was incredible to suddenly have one of the top level exchanges in my corner supporting my artwork and giving me a platform to exclusively sell under their banner. since then, they've brought on a number of artists as collaborators as they continue to grow themselves. But it's a very powerful team to be in league with, and I know that it gives me a lot of resources to work with for my ideas.
That's incredible, man. I also love how they went about that process of, you know, kind of narrowing it down to 3 people and then leaving it up to, like, you know, actual engagement as to who the choice would be. Yeah,
I agree. It was actually a very successful way to do it, because I see a lot of competitions and contests in this space where it's purely just all about who gets the most likes or the most votes. And those are easy to skew because anyone can just, you know, get their friends to vote for you or send out mass DMs to people. I'm sure you get all sorts of DMs. Be like, hey, I need 5 invites for this channel to become the top person to win this contest, whatever. And that's just not really the best way to go about it. So I like that they kind of narrowed it down from the start, and then, like you said, turned it over to the community. And
money talks, right? You know, I love it. That's epic, man. I would love to know more about Disturbia. I'm stoked for, like, this in a lot of ways, like Axel, you know, finding a relationship with a kind of a pre-built kind of project and platform, and then having this epic connection, which now is, like, obviously going to be a very long relationship for you with Spirit Swap. But I'd love to know about kind of more your artistic brain. I really want to know about your process. Like, where does this begin? Like, I've kind of put some screenshots to show people kind of how you step your way through from creating environment to creating elements, then to creating a scene, right? But I just think, tell us, where does it start? Does it start on with a whiteboard with fridge magnets? Like, does it start, like, how do you get from what the fuck's in your brain to the full soundscape little thing that people, you know, that this collection has and owns?
Well, I think I participate quite frequently in the Tombheads auction house now as well, and I think I mentioned to someone over there that I have a very haunted and disturbing imagination. That's where a lot of these ideas for Disturbia kind of come from, because as I continue to expand my own knowledge in the cryptolandia, there's parts of me that just I come across these terms that, you know, like liquidity pool and bridge and LPs, just things that I'm just like, I wonder what that would look like if they really were real things. And so I kind of merged that with the whole branding of Phantom, as you all know, is a sort of spooky kind of haunted, Halloweenish kind of disturbing visuals. And I sort of just mixed that in a big melting pot with my ideas. And I thought there's probably something pretty cool here to design or try and interpret and visualize what some of these concepts would look like in a very weird and disturbing way. So I'd say probably about 80% of my work, as you mentioned, is finalized inside of Adobe After Effects, with the rest of that pie chart going to Cinema 4D and Photoshop for textures and model manipulations. Specifically, a lot of the scene building that I do is with a plugin called Element 3D. And I find that I can execute almost all of my ideas inside of Element, which is great for me because I've been using that plugin for about 7 or 8 years now, and I can pretty fluidly move about the interface and do my keyframing. There are some capabilities that I do wish Element could pluck from, say, Cinema 4D, because Cinema 4D has the advantage of having very hyper-realistic renderers like Redshift and Octane, and it can do things like hair rendering that are just insanely awesome that Element can't do. But there's some also significant advantages to using a compositing program like After Effects to do the final export, but I'm Tish. So After Effects allows me to throw down, for instance, adjustment layers, just like in Photoshop, to which I can apply a color grade that might substantially alter the mood of the piece. So I have a huge library of color presets that I can just drag and drop into a composition and then quickly determine if it's creating the right vibe. Those are things that I can't really do inside of a modeling software like C4D.
I'm particularly fascinated about your very, very, very deep relationship with your tools, right? And your program. I like foresee, it's almost like an instrument, right? You become extremely versed at this instrument, but then there's upgrades, right? So like in 5 years' time, what's going to be available to you in terms of programming and plugins and processing power and all the rest of it? Like that's gonna completely manipulate your work. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. And I tend to be a bit of a technological gearhead anyway. I always like to sort of experiment with new technology and just be on the bleeding edge of that in any way that I possibly can. So I think about how like the early 2000s, probably one of my all-time favorite movies was Minority Report, and we remember seeing like all the highly futuristic interfaces that people were using with their hands in that film, and it's like, oh man, I wonder if we're ever going to reach a time where that is reality. And I'm pretty sure now we are actually at that point. So yeah, I definitely see that there's going to become a time where it's going to get just unreal working with 3D modeling, almost like holograms right in front of us. And you just be like crafting 3D models with your fingers. Is kind of how I envision it.
Yeah, it's wild. It's so fucking cool that a occupation that might have otherwise previously only existed as like you've exactly explained the way you've found yourself in this space through film and post-production, right? So like a form that's like otherwise kind of just known or mainly known for that is now stepping out into this zone of expressiveness and this idea that, it's your canvas is just, it's canvas, but it moves and it interacts and it's a space. It's a digital atmosphere that you've created. Just the idea that how expressive that can get, like when it starts getting wild and out of control, it's just going to be insane. I think when 3D art just takes a full step away from post-production and just becomes the main form, I don't know. It's so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, both of the collections that I'm kind of throwing out there right now, both Disturbia and Spiritopoly, both very heavily lean into that 3D aesthetic. Spiritopoly is actually the one that I just launched probably like 3 or 4 days ago. That's the one that I'm probably way more excited about just because I'm working on it with Spirit Swap. To me, that is, I'm not actually paying attention to the chat, so I don't know if you've shared any of the preview images down there, but Spiritopoly is basically, for me, it's a multi-phase project in my mind. The current minting, again, which I started just a few days ago, will basically help create funding for phase 2, which would be an actual on-chain multiplayer board game. Someone tweeted at me actually recently on Twitter that Spiritopoly is the kind of project that would bring immense value to the Phantom chain because of our lack of diverse gaming options. And I mean, wow, I'm incredibly humbled by that thought. But yes, I do hope to sort of make that a reality with support from Spirit Swap because, I'm already their resident artist. I have their ear, and I do know that they want to expand their platform offerings for next year. Many of their team members, including Rob, have actually worked in the real world as game developers. So I think there's a huge opportunity to turn that into something exciting, something perhaps akin to what Arcade NFT is doing over on Ethereum by releasing playable consoles and then holding gaming tournaments for cash prizes. And I think that would just be a lot of fun to have over on Phantom.
So fucking sick. You seem like you're very involved in like that kind of utility side in the direction, or not, maybe not involved, but you're like completely like that's something you value and you hold very strong to the work that you connect yourself with. Is that correct? Like,
yeah, I would say. I mean, somewhat, yes. I would say that I don't, since I'm not a developer, I don't have a coder's brain at all. Most of my ideas are simply ideas, but this is where part of my filmmaking background comes into play, and I know how to build relationships kind of from a producer's brain. And so I'm able to use my communication skills to build relationships with the right people, to make sure that my ideas get completed at the level that I want them to get completed at. So yes, I do see this as a project specifically where I would want it to have utility in the future. And I feel like as long as you have the right people in your corner, really anything's possible.
So true, man. So true. Dude, thank you so much. That was so epic. It's so awesome to have a variety of different art in these chats, you know? And I really appreciate the insight on your process and your journey, man. That was beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's absolute pleasure. We're going to move on to our fourth and final artist before we open up to the audience for questions, raising hands and whatnot, and also just general topics and chats about art in the NFT space. Our final guest is Sick Individual. How are you, my dude?
Very, very good. I'm very thankful for what you're doing, man. I really appreciate this because it demonstrates the passion that you have for this and the support. So I really, really appreciate it. It's crazy the amount of support that I've found in the FTM community, and I'm so glad that I was recruited by True Voodoo, who I'm giving a shout out to, who contacted me like a couple of months ago. And you know, I'm new to this space as well, so when he introduced FTM to me, I initially didn't know what he was talking about, but slowly started doing some research and slowly started discovering again the support and the passion that there is with this NFT world. So very happy to be here, man. Thanks a lot.
Dude, it's like I said, no thanks needed. This is my favorite time of the fucking week. I wake up on my Thursday and I talk with some of the coolest people I've met in years. So I'm getting as much out of this as anyone else is. Just remember it.
Right, man.
Sick, man. So this is it's symbolic surrealism is what you've described it to me. And it's paintings and personal art that you kind of work with. Psychedelic storytelling, which is I read that term and I was like, that is just fucking the coolest thing in the world. I have a deep kind of like personal love and connection with your style because of my influence, especially of Salvador Dali. I don't know if that's something that has sprung.
Yeah, man.
Whether that's deep.
I mean, for me, Salvador Dali, since I was little, was the artist that most captured my attention. I remember I just loved everything he was doing, and when I was in college, there was we had to take a class, you know, to get credits, and one of them was surrealism, and so I was like, I gotta take the surrealism class, and obviously Salvador Dali was like the main topic, and I was just completely hooked on him as a person, as a style. Like I heard stories where he would starve himself or not sleep for days just to hallucinate, you know, which is not something I do, but it's just crazy how he would get to that point. You know, he was just like in a different dimension. And so for me, I think it's been a big influence. And when people mention him as, you know, when they think of Salvador Dali, when they see my art, to me, it's a huge compliment.
Oh man, it's so vivid, and so it's like so there, but at the same time in this strangely subtle way. I think like one of the reasons why he's so influential is because he's applied movement and just forgotten, you know, gravity and elements. I think it's just very clear in what you create, man. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
So I've got some questions, some proper specific questions. And before I do, I just want to lay down exactly what you work with for everyone listening. So you work with Flash and Photoshop is what you put here. I love that Photoshop is pretty much across the board, everybody. But also spray paints and acrylics on canvas. So I think I've got a couple of examples that I'll drop in the chat for everybody. This shit will blow your mind. So you've got two collections. One's on OpenSea, that's called the Sick Minds collection by Sick Individual, and there's a paint swap collection as well that's called Sick Lines by Sick Individual. I'll shut up in a sec and I'll let you take the absolute motherfucking floor. But my main question is there a narrative worked into, like, sorry, hang on. Does this, I'm going to scratch that question. This is way better. Does this content that you create, is it like a stream of consciousness? Like, do you just fucking begin and see where it ends and see where it takes you? Or is everything and all the things that feature in these kind of like, in these pieces, everything really pre-planned? Tell us about your process, motherfucker.
So, well, there's two collections that you mentioned, right? The first one is the one in OpenSea, which is Sick Minds, and it's basically that one started. It's honoring legends who have influenced the world, and it all started with a drawing that I did of Bob Marley. I was in Los Angeles, and I was listening to Natural Mystic, and I usually don't smoke weed. Like the times I've done it, like I get kind of paranoid, to be honest. There's been times where I've had a good time, and I wish I could just go with it, right? Because I do see like the positive side of it. But I smoked a big blunt that day, and I was by myself in the apartment of a friend, and I was listening to Natural Mystic, and I did this Bob Marley. This Bob Marley, which I'll share with you guys, because it's the first one that I did, and when I finished doing it, I saw it, and I start thinking, man, this is a pretty cool style I should do this with all the people that I love, all the artists that I like, and I saw a movie of Gandhi, and the one that won an Oscar, and it's super long. I think it's in 2 parts, and then I did Gandhi. And with the same style, which is making his face with things that kind of represent his life or his persona. And then after that, Bob Dylan, and it just went from there. So what I did with these is I did T-shirts, and it started with T-shirts. But there's 60 designs or 65 designs that I've made, and I only did like 15 T-shirts because obviously producing them is pretty expensive. And this was a project that I did like probably like 7 years ago. So it was in hold, the pandemic, all that didn't really help out. And then the NFTs, I discovered the NFTs, and I was like, man, this is a perfect opportunity to put those designs into NFTs, because it's all about collections. So I thought this would be great, right? So I put it OpenSea, which is very accessible for new artists. I try to go straight to like the big platforms, but I didn't get any response, which I do understand why it's the case. But yeah, that's how we started. So the faces represent their style, that Van Gogh one. I did it. You can tell like it has like the strokes and like the kind of his style, but within the digital concept. And then the second one is the paintings, which is more my personal style, which is more the Salvador Dali style, which is you're asking me about the process, and that one is just letting the mind go free, and the paintings have more of a meaning, right? There's another one that I did for Paint Swap that is more like just the subconscious. These two that you just shared are the paintings. They do have meaning. The first one is called Drooling Creator, and the second one is called Numbness. And for example, on Numbness, there's a face of a clown in the center. In the middle, in the forehead, there's like a bottle pouring liquor down his nose. It's like a clown face. He's got like a clown nose. There's like a river that comes down, and his mouth is kind of open where like the primitives are standing with fire, and out of the fire you see like a monkey face looking at the fire, and the fire comes into the castle, which is the mind of like this man who represents a king, and then he has like people bowing in front of him. So it's a combination of like just pop,
It's fucking absolutely wild, man. It's like, I love this freedom that you've attached to you've literally just let your fucking brain go ham and just give you what it wants to give you, It's so beautifully evident in this, dude. This is really interesting, but the first thing I thought when I saw this piece of art was Aboriginal art. I don't know how much traditional Aboriginal art you've seen. Some of the modern Aboriginal art will blow your fucking mind. But yeah, that is something you mentioned primitive and the people dancing around the fire and stuff like that. I actually haven't noticed until I started kind of delving into the world of what this is. But yeah, man.
Well,
it's so
there's always topics.
unique.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nah, dude, you go.
No, I was just saying, like, there is topics that I repeat in my paintings. There's always the faces and the eyes.
Yeah, no.
There's usually eggs. There's a lot of alien stuff. I like to put UFO sometimes in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. Maybe the subconscious has a little bit of that Aboriginal historic, like, topics relate to the, like the human essence somehow.
Well, I can hypothesize as to why, right? So, like, Aboriginal art it's traditionally it's story fucking telling, man. They tell stories. That's exactly what they do. You look at a piece of Aboriginal art, and with the person who'd create it, most of the time it's like, well, this is doing this, and that's all about that, and like exactly the way you just spent talking about your art. That's exactly that. And so there's similarities in it that are not just visual. You're using a 2D space in a lot of ways, and I say 2D space because there is this thing where the recent one I just posted, how everything kind of just like sprawls out on a table in a sense, and then the background kind of just meets with the foreground, and it's kind of is just what it is. It's like you have to kind of explore the surface to kind of like put your own kind of narrative together. I think it's it's so incredibly unique, man, which is why I drew my eyeballs to this immediately. I was like, holy shit, like this is just so weird, and it's just so deep. It's so deep from someone's mind. That's the vibe I got.
Man, perfect. I mean, that's a beautiful reaction to. I mean, I do the art obviously because I enjoy doing it. I love doing it, and when you get a comment like that, then you just feel like you're doing the right thing.
You absolutely fucking are, man. Can you tell us about where this is going? Like what, like you're here in the NFT space. You've got your style. You've managed to translate and transfer your art into this world. What are the challenges you're seeing? What are the things you're seeing? What's the trajectory you're going on at the current point?
Well, it's a good question. When I started, which was like probably 7 months ago, again, like I said, I thought of I have these 60 designs of sick individual, the characters, so I thought I could use those. And I've been 7 months trying to get those out. I was able to sell 2 of them. It was a very slow process, which I start understanding why. It's not just about putting your art out there. There's a lot of work you got to put into there, dedication. You gotta do your part, your homework. So, and again, luckily I got contacted by True Voodoo, who so supportive, told me to get into the FTM world. And at the beginning, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Then he wrote again, so I was like, okay, this guy, he's contacting me again, so I'll check it out. And I thought, well, I'm not gonna repeat the same art on PaintSwap or in the FTM world. I'll put my other art, the personal one. So I'm starting to realize that this is the path that I'm more seeing the potential in, and this is the path where I want to follow. Is continuing doing this style of this symbolic surrealism, which is what I really most enjoy doing, because it's honestly like meditation, man. It's like you were asking me about the process, and it starts with a scribble. It starts with a scribble, and the scribble has to have composition. That's the only thing. So in that square space, I'll do like a scribble, but thinking of it looking nice as a scribble with composition. Very simple. And on top of that, I start just creating stuff. So I'll be like, okay, here I see like an eye, here I see a face, here I see the ear, here I see the mouth, and then just listening to music. I'll just go free or listening to podcast. And that's it, man. Like, to me, that's the most enjoyable thing to do, man. Just sit down, listen, put your headphones on, get in the zone, and just go free. So this is what I want to continue doing. And yeah, man, and we'll see how it goes with the OpenSea collection. I might have to bridge them. I might have to move everything to FTM because again, I'm seeing like such support here and potential, and we'll see what happens.
Please do,
but
man.
Definitely motivated, man. Definitely motivated.
Man, everything you just said actually means a shitload to me, because part of my process of how I taught myself how to draw is literally the process of these paintings of what you just explained. When I ran out of and got sick of drawing fucking Dragon Ball Z figures and characters and, you know, Saturday morning cartoons, like a lot like Teens on Acid, like I think that's where a lot of illustrators come from. You know, it's the most influential time for most of us, I think, aesthetically anyway. When I ran out of those ideas, I did exactly what you are talking about. I would literally start with a blank piece of paper. I would scribble something, make sure that the scribble had some sort of structure and it wasn't just chaos. And then I'd sit there for hours and just pick out, using the shapes in which where lines interlace. I would find these voids, and out of those voids I'd find shapes, and out of shapes I'd find actual things, and I'd create drawings of just absolute chaos.
I think it's such a fun way to draw, and you know what? Like I also went through a period of Dragon Ball Z, man. I think 3 years of drawing in Dragon Ball Z all the time.
Totally.
I even, man, when I was a little kid, I even drew like Dragon Ball Z X shit, you know, and like Bulma with Goku. And I remember my friend's mom found it in his drawer, and this fucker told me it was me who drew it. You know, I got in trouble. Yeah, but yeah, man, in cartoons, since I was little, I'd always draw the Ninja Turtles, which was my favorite cartoon. I was drawing like anything from Hanna-Barbera, just copying stuff all the time. And I think that's where I got the cartoon feel, which I love. You know, like my mom told me, you should paint these, but like realistically. Like you should make them look real, like the same image, but real. I was like, Mom, I told her, you know, she's like, you're completely right. It would look amazing. But that cartoon feel is just in me, you know, I just like it. I like the black lines and, you know, the shading, just be one or two, not more than two, because then it becomes more realistic. I have nothing against that, but it's just my style. So yeah, man, the influence is definitely there from the childhood. And that process of scribbling and drawing is fun because you don't know what you're really gonna end up with, but you're just going with the process, and so every second is complete focus.
Fucking A, man. I kind of love that about the NFT space or the art space on NFT with NFTs in general. Like, there's no one's kind of laying down a taste or what they want. So because you're entering the space and you don't really know what people want, you're like, oh, fuck it, man. What do I want? I love drawing DBZ, or I love doing, you know what I mean? And so it's a space that's allowing artists, because there's no rules and because there's no one laying down what's popular and because there's nothing that's more popular than someone else. It's like, fuck it, I can just do whatever I want. And that beauty of freedom, when you give that kind of freedom to an artist, 9 times out of 10, they just go straight back to their childhood. You know, they go straight back to what brings them back to that place where they're so content and meditative. Fuck it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know what I was actually thinking is that this NFT world is allowing artists to, be completely unique, because if you think about the amount of artists or the percentage of artists that are out there just doing like regular art jobs, doing what you got to design this to sell this. Okay. You know, you put your talent in that, or you got to I studied animation. I did animation for probably like 6 years, and I was drawing the same character over and over and over for someone's idea, you know, which is nothing wrong with it, right? If you love it, it's all good. But then I would always think, man, I just want to do my own stuff, right? So, and I'm sure it's the case with so many artists where they go to work They tell them this is what we want, and you use that time to work on that. But the NFT world is allowing the artists to actually use that time to do whatever they want, just express their ideas visually. And there's people out there that are gonna, be attracted to it by what it is, by how it looks, how it moves, the color that it has. So, man, this new media that we have is amazing, man. Like, I'm telling you, like a couple of weeks ago, I was still looking at jobs for freelance, trying to get some gigs to make some money, and I just entered this new world. Already made some Phantom, selling on the auction in Tomb Heads, and it's completely motivated me, man. It's already like making me see like this opportunity, and it's to continue doing it. And I'm sure it's the same for many of the artists here. So it's amazing. It's like a dream come true.
It's a revolution, man. It's literally what we're a part of, dude. It's pretty special.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that, dude. That was intense. That was so awesome. I've been so excited for this episode. And it's turned out to be everything I fucking wanted. So thanks everyone for all of that insight on each other's projects. I want to open up to the audience. If anyone's got a question, please raise your hand. I'd love to bring it up to the stage and open up some topics. I'll give it a little bit. But yeah, I guess I want to start with a topic. I love every single episode. I've weaseled my way to this topic at some stage. So I thought I'd just start off with it. I want to fast forward 6 or 7 months. It's basically 2 years in this space. So yeah, fast forward six to 7 months into the future. NFTs, they've had a hype. They've been on a bit of a hype run, but I feel like it's only the tip of the iceberg. I think once big brands and stuff start entering, it's just going to get out of control. I want to talk about what you guys fear about the space. I know that you've been supported and nurtured for so long, and in your introduction into the space, but can we all kind of chime in on what we truly believe to be things that we should be wary of as artists, and things that we need to prepare for as this space explodes and grows?
Well, honestly, I'm a pretty reckless sort of artist. Every single time people is like, aim there, I would just fucking aim there and just jump into the pool head first. The only thing I really fear about this future, which seems really bright, it's, the typical risks that every single artist has to face: scammers, underpricing, people who tend to inflate their prices, or exposure also, just putting your art there and no one noticing. But honestly, on at least what I've seen so far in my really short experience in the Avalanche ecosystem, and from what I can hear from you guys who have been working on this for way longer than I have two conclusions, which is number one, I better fucking get into Phantom, and number two, I think it's actually, I think it would be really sad to fear such a great future for the art community, for creativity as a whole, to not get into the NFT market as an artist, I think.
I agree with that completely, and I don't want to come off as arrogant or ignorant, but if we move forward with any kind of fear within ourselves, within our abilities, and within the community that's obviously supporting us, helping us, keep our families safe and fed, helping support us do the things that we love. If we have any fear at all, I think it's only going to stop us from becoming the best versions of ourselves that we can be. Personally, I have no fears. I'm on this train going straight forwards, and I have all intentions of becoming the best artist I can possibly be.
Amen, bro. I agree completely, and I have to say that in the beginning I was hesitant. For example, as an example, right, going into the FTM world, which I knew nothing about, I was very hesitant, and I had conversations with my brother, who's letting him know, I've been contacted, and this. I don't know if putting my paintings up there because these are my good pieces, and I don't know. But then he was like, just go with it, man. This is it seems like a project that's beginning. And you know what? I thought about that movie of Jim Carrey, the movie Yes. Like he's always negative and he's always like no at the beginning. And when he starts saying yes, just opportunities start opening up. And that's kind of like, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that thing from the movie. I'm just positive mind. Things don't work out, it's fine, but it's just being positive, and so I agree completely with that concept of going forward, man.
At least in art, it's pretty difficult because most artists tend to think like that. We just get into art and we see our drawing, and even though we say it's bad at the beginning, we just keep going. And I think that's what people should do in this environment as well.
For sure.
I completely agree with that as well. There, as artists, whether we're working for ourselves or whether we're working in a design studio or we're freelancing, we're going to have roadblocks. We're going to have things that happen to us that bring us down, that make us feel not so good about ourselves as artists, and that make us question ourselves. What we have now is an opportunity to go headlong into what we love to do. There is support, and it's not just in the form of buyers, but it's in the form of the community that we find ourselves in. It's within like-minded artists and just like-minded individuals all together. I haven't experienced community like this ever before on this level as an artist. It's very similar to the art explosion on the internet back in 99, 2000, 2001. There was a great sense of community back there. There was a lot of digital art happening, but there wasn't
the Newgrounds era.
What's that?
Like the Newgrounds era you're talking.
For sure. Yeah. So there was K10K and Designers Kinky and Oz in Front and Pixel Surgeon. There was so many portals to bring artists to the internet. It just wasn't financially as viable as it has become today with crypto. So circling around, I just think it's an incredible time for all of us. If we just support each other through this space, I don't think we have too much to fear. We can just keep moving forward.
Yeah, totally. That's amazing. What great answers. Aspenth, do you want to throw anything to the mix there?
I'm trying to think of what else to add here. I think as I'm reading through the chat, I'm hearing people talk about like what they fear about this space. I think for me, one of the only things that kind of I don't really know what the solution is here, but kind of what makes me sad is just the idea of NFT theft or artwork theft. I think it's slowly becoming rampant, and it's probably just going to continue to get even worse as more and more people join this space. Again, I don't really know what the solution is to preventing that altogether, or if it's even possible. But something that kind of made me sad, even a particular incident this morning. And Tinfoil, I'm going to reference you. I know you're in the audience listening here, but Tinfoil knows there was an individual who had tweeted him this morning trying to shill an NFT to him that was actually a piece of artwork from Heian Lee, who we all know from the Tombheads auction house. And we all called him out on it, like why are you trying to sell this piece to him when it's clearly someone else's artwork? And the way he responded, he acted like it was absolutely totally fine. He said, "I'm not trying to hide the fact that it's a copy, but there's nothing wrong with that." And I think that sort of mentality is just it's toxic. I don't know where that mentality comes from, that it's just totally okay to take someone else's artwork and sell it for your own profit. But yeah, there's definitely some disturbing things that are materializing in this world. And I guess that maybe kind of goes along with just the fact that the crypto world is kind of the wild, wild west right now. So hopefully some people will figure out ways to make that whole situation better.
I think that's definitely something that exists in art and the real world, regardless. What helps us as artists, I think, is that we have the community around us to call these fuckers out, and to, whenever somebody sees something that's not right, it's immediately brought in front of everyone's eyes. That happened in the Tombheads auction house over the weekend. With Yvonne and the Class Filet stuff, when she was just using anime avatars for art and passing it off as her own. So I think, there's always going to be dirtbags, and with our community, I think we're going to be able to fight that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I was about to kind of chime in on that, as in, like, I love the way that naturally relationships are formed between the audience collectors and artist creators, whether they're teams or whatnot. Like, there creates a middle ground space, I think, with people, like Tweak. I keep using Tweak as an example just because I would love to walk through his gallery, because I've witnessed so many of his incredible purchases, like so many pieces of art that I just love. So, naturally people like Tweak will become gallery owners, and like people would love to go through Tweak's gallery because because of what he's done for the space and whatever. And then you've got, a potential, just on what Aspenth was saying, like a potential space for a third party authenticator, or like, a community-based group that's like works really, really hard at keeping the art space clear and transparent, and, like you were saying, Teens on Acid jump on things when they pop up, that is roles I don't think that will be needed to be held or taken responsibility by the artist, but I believe with a strong enough community, these things will naturally kind of appear in lieu of trying to protect what they've created,
I guess I also like to think that as this space evolves and as the technology gets better, maybe one solution we might see, who knows what the time frame would be, but I think about how like YouTube handles MP3s that are uploaded that are clearly copyrighted, and it has its own like back-end library where it scans the music against its own repertoire. It knows almost instantly if you're trying to upload something that belongs to someone else, just because it's able to quickly match against its own database. So it makes me wonder if something like that could become reality in the crypto space, where NFTs are whenever they're re-uploaded by someone, they're scanned against a huge database, and it just knows by matching pixels or whatnot that this has already existed someplace, it's somewhere.
Yeah,
I think you've got a business model right there.
I mean, I was going to say that's a very big business model, just because, like, to give you a perspective on how YouTube works, like that's all waveforms. So they'll literally take the waveform, and that visual aid will allow them to match waveform to waveform. You know what I mean? So that's how they kind of like do it on YouTube. So, and essentially, you could apply the same rules to art. Really, I just I don't know what's the line then, and what's crossing the line between manipulation? Someone just taking your Juan Lee, for example, he takes one of those into a Photoshop and just liquefies it, maybe 50 or 30%, or you know what I mean, and just whacks it out a little bit, not to the point where it ruins it aesthetically, but to the point where if there was kind of a pixel matching software trying to authenticate things, And then there's also this argument of, I took it into Photoshop and I manipulated it so it is actually mine. Like, I think that the whole plagiarism conversation is I'm so glad that came up as a fear, because it's I want to make sure that throughout all the excitement we share as artists in this space, that doesn't breed too much naivety and we're all very like aware of what is happening outside of the excitement, you know.
I think one thing that I'm personally wanting to possibly explore doing more with my artwork is, and I know a lot of photographers do this as well, they find little, almost subtle ways to include their signature in the artwork. Not make it obvious, like don't plaster a big ass watermark on it, but just incorporate your signature into the design somewhere, so that if someone else does upload your work, then you have a very easy course of action to point it out and say, no, here's my signature right here.
Yeah, for sure. It's also important,
but in a subtle way that the person who's re-uploading it might not have even caught it.
That's right.
Yeah. It's also it also proves the importance of having a style, right? So if your art becomes popular, or you start getting some traction, then when they see a piece, they know it's you, and so that's also very important. If having an art that represents your own style is definitely important. Like, for example, right? Like you see a Beeple, it's a Beeple, or so that may help as well. But in the end, like it was mentioned in the art world, there's always going to be this kind of theft and these intentions to fuck you over. But hopefully the technology starts improving to the point where these things are avoided.
That's something incredible about the. Go ahead.
No, Axel, you finish up, brother. Go for it.
Well, I was just going to point out the fact that I think, rather this, more than being a fear, because this is a risk that most artists will have to face at a certain point in their careers when they go into NFTs. But I think that more than a fear, this is also something that helps mold the sort of community in the NFT environments, because we're talking about a place in which you can find so much unique art, and that's the point, because basically impersonating something super unique and super rare, it's a little bit harder than trying to imitate something generic, because it's generic and everyone can do it. That just makes the NFTs a place where originality is rewarded instead of being punished, and I think that's something really great.
Fucking
yeah, for sure.
That's a great point. I've got a question here from Tinfoil Realist that I'm going to get into, guys, because it's a good one. It says, is it hard to look around at some of the successful projects right now and not try and kind of mold around them, or are you finding it easier to find your own way with your own style? He says he uses myself as an example. He says he knows that I'm a traditional artist, but I've seen the success of these generative projects and therefore bent my style for the time being down this route. Do we want to talk about that?
Well, honestly, when it comes on working for other projects, I always had the skill of just matching most styles I encounter, with some exceptions, obviously. But at least for me, working for projects like Yield Yak just took a little bit of both. Why? Because my main job is just designing mascots. But of course, I need to give the mascot a little bit of my personal touch. Most projects usually ask me like, just do something simple, sort of like a jack with a winter theme, because Avalanche has unlike Phantom, which is a pretty spooky sort of Halloween theme, Avalanche has a winter theme to it. So that's nice. And they were all like, yeah, just make a jack with that and make it a little bit better than the one we already had. But when you add your personal touch, everything just becomes a little bit more yours. Everything just becomes a little bit more relatable to people because you're putting features of yourself into your work. So I would say it's a little bit of both. You need to put your own style so that you make yourself a valuable addition to the team, because no other artist would do it the way you do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something pretty important and valuable in the crypto community.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree there. I don't really feel like I have to bend my style at all to fit in with the
not your style,
the projects that are happening.
Not your style, but like, for instance, you know, like we've witnessed the profile picture thing happened, obviously. So like, it's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna you know, tailor my way down that road, and then you know, music's popping off, or Gamify's popping off. Like, I guess that's what I was saying. Like, do you want to just kind of stick true to what you basically, the way you operated as an artist before the NFT space, or are you willing to kind of be really influenced by the way that it kind of moves and shifts and changes?
I think it's important that we're able to move and shift. We have to, you know, we have to be like chameleons at times as artists. There's a lot to be said about sticking to your guns and not changing and not bending to the suggestions of the community or certain individuals or whatever, really. But if you plan on making a career out of being an artist, I think it's incredibly important that you take on the advice and the ideas from others around you, especially if they've been in this space longer than what we have. They see what works and they see what doesn't work. One thing Toom had said to me was, do you want to make money, or do you want to be a true artist to yourself? And the answer is always directly down the middle. You want to be able to survive and live off your art, but you don't want to sell out and just, you know, create art that doesn't speak from your soul or is true to you. So I think I'm going off a little bit off topic there.
No, you spot the fuck on.
Okay. I think it's so back to the question. I'm just reading it. Finding it easy to find our own style, or our own way with our own style. I think finding our own way is. I found it hard, and it wasn't until I found the Toom Heads community where I was able to take guidance from people who'd been in the space longer than I have, that I was able to apply my skills, my talent, and my ideas to the space. You know, I think it's that there's something to be said about sticking to your guns, but I just don't think we can grow as artists if we don't take on advice. If that makes sense.
That's a wonderful answer. Second individual, go for it.
Yo, I agree completely. I do feel that it's the most important thing is finding a style. Definitely something that you identify with, right? I mean, there's so much influence out there, and if I feel like if there's an artist that feels that they haven't yet found their style, because there are artists that are having some trouble with it. I would suggest just taking the time to think about it, meditate about it, even consider music, anything artistic, music, graffiti art, illustrations, paintings, cartoons, movies, anything that because I think it's super important to have a style. I remember there was a teacher once in class. I took a class, animation, the career in animation it was. And I remember he mentioned the importance of having a style. And at that time, I was like, well, not necessarily, because at that time I was thinking, right, I would think I think it's better if I can do different styles, if I can do this, if I can do that. And that's how I thought at that time. But now I'm understanding the importance of having a style, even more so with the NFT world. Because again, it's like you see someone's profile pic and you see the picture and you know who that picture represents. So having that in consideration, and then finding a way, experimenting should be done with patience. Just taking the time to find something that you're like, you know what, this is the path I want to go through, is something I think I would recommend. Because when you find something that you feel you connect with and that represents you, you're going to stop comparing your art with others, which is the most important thing. Like, everyone is unique in their own way. You know, there's the art, there's no best, there's no worst. It's like art has so many forms and so many ways of being attractive, so many ways of being something you just love. So if you find something that represents you, that's unique to yourself, and that just makes you stop comparing, and you're just happy with it, I think that's the ultimate goal. And of course, you know, again, the influences is something to consider to find that thing that represents yourself.
Well said, man. That was incredible.
Thanks, man.
That was awesomely put, actually.
So fucking
beautiful, man. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's important. Definitely important too.
Anyone else feeling like they want to run through a brick wall after that little speech?
Yeah. I love it. Do you have anything to add to that brick wall conversation over there, Aspen?
I don't know. I think that's just the advice that most artists want to hear at some point of their lives, because at the same time, there's a lot of people who's not like, oh, well, I don't need a style. I can just be like, do my own thing. And there are some artists who are like really struggling to get their own styles. And I think that's just the perfect sum of it. It's just like, it is important, because having no style, or at least thinking that you have your own style, you don't have your own style, is basically implying you have no personality. Your style is part of yourself, of what you've learned, of what you like. And I totally agree with what sick individual said. We could say that was a sick speech, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks.
Let me just tack one little thing on the end of that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Graffiti Crew 123 clan, but they have a saying, and it's "Style is the message," and I think it rings true. We all need that style. Our personal style speaks for ourselves. It shows who we are as artists. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Fucking oath.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of patience. It's not a matter of it takes time. But if your focus is there, like, I want to find a style, I want like something that it's going to take time, and you just got to have patience and just work at it. It's almost like sculpting something, right? So, I think that should be something important before maybe perhaps jumping into this world just with random stuff, is focusing on something that's going to represent you, almost like a brand. It is a brand in the end, right? It's a brand. So it's what can I do that's out of the box? I don't want to repeat myself. Like you see it with CryptoPunks and all that. You see, like it started with these CryptoPunks, and then all these other artists start doing something very similar, which is a copy paste, right? And that's fine. I mean, but do you really want to just imitate that, or do you want? And that's where the true artist comes in. The true artist in the making money. So do you just want to repeat that, or do you want something that's essential, like it represents your essence? So that, to me, takes time, and one has to work at it. And once they find it, then I think you're on the right path.
Absolutely. I think that's a beautiful segue into our what will be our next and final question. So it's from Hot Sauce. He says something he's really curious about is how many people are you all working with? He says, other than myself, because they know what's going on with myself. I obviously work with the team. Hot Sauce wants to know from each of you, what kind of team do you have, or what kind of team do you think you might need? Or do you even need a fucking team? Do you even see yourself growing in that manner?
When it comes to creating my art, it's just me. There's nobody else here at my desk.
what about building utility? What about building narrative? What about like, you know, because obviously, I wouldn't even want to. I don't think there's a place where, in many circumstances, where you want to take away from the original source, where the aesthetics and the actual product comes from. But what about like, what about as you grow? What about it when this explodes? What about when you've got fucking like hundreds and thousands of people asking you for whatever and whatnot? Like, do you see yourself, and this goes across the board to all artists, do you see yourselves growing into a team?
Absolutely. I know that I'm going to need it. Right now, I'm making connections with animators, 3D sculptors, and story writers through various Discords and through Twitch. I'm not at a point where I can fund any of those projects just yet, but I'm on the way there. So I know I can't do everything that I aspire to do by myself. I'll just burn out completely. So I just know that I've got to take care of what I can take care of and just move on from there. So at the moment, it's just me and the advice that I get from the people that I talk with.
Well, I mean, obviously I have some people working with me on Yield Yak, and those people are awesome, always giving me a lot of freedom in what I do. But at least in the art, I work alone right now. They just give me a prompt or something they want to get done. Let's make this sticker. Let's make this part. Let's do this. And I like to engage with them, sort of like wake them up, because there's always a point when you're in a team that it's pretty hard to get like pretty fresh ideas. So we always try to push a little bit further, make things a little bit funnier, grow storytelling on the mascot and add more details to it. And it's a pretty fun team to work with, and it's not that big. It's probably like 6 people in total, but it's great. And for future projects, yeah, I will totally need a team, and it's great to be networking with such talented artists like you guys, because I can just learn so much from just these conversations alone. And this is just it's just something that I'll be considering, just having a full set team in the future. But right now, I have a pretty like free position. I don't really have a boss. I can just be myself with the art that I make for these companies, and that's great.
Yeah, in my case, it's the same. I'm solo by myself, working on these projects that are new, but hopefully one day I will definitely need more people, because that's just that would just represent the growth, right? But for now, just alone and working on my pieces.
I think like everyone else here, I'm mostly a solo artist designer, but as far as collaborations go, I think I can answer this question as well as a previous question of yours from way earlier, where you asked me where the music of my pieces come from. I'll give a hearty shout out to Stephen Vinyl here in the audience, because he works very closely with me on a lot of my pieces, since he is a incredible audio music composer, and a lot of my work uses his work as the background music. All of the Spiritopoly mints, for instance, use a custom Spirit Swap music track that he made, which is just incredible. I realized, obviously, in my line of work, that video and audio go hand in hand in establishing the vibe. So I think it's important to have both good video and good audio. So I'm thankful for him working with me on a number of projects.
Fucking amazing. That's incredible. I remembered I was going to do a Christmas present, and I was going to give someone a Mingo, one of my Mingos. So I think I'm just going to give it to Steve in Vinyl. One, because Steve, you've been hanging around the whole chat. You've been here the whole time. You've engaged. You've been an absolute legend. I want to give you a sexy Mingo, so I'll send you a screenshot of my shit, and you can choose whichever one you want. I don't give a fuck. So here we are, guys. We are at the end of the AMA. We're almost an hour and 45 minutes. I haven't been bored for a single second. This has probably been one of the most engaging conversations I've had all year. They just keep.
I got more to talk about.
Oh, dude, we're gonna be sinking beers in a couple of days down in the Gold Coast. So don't worry about that.
Good shit.
Yeah. We'll talk till the cows come home.
Sounds
guys,
good.
thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to come in and talk about your thing and what you do and your art. For making friends, we're all mates now. Like, that's one of the coolest things about this space. Don't be a stranger. Always reach out to each other, and maybe there's some collabs on the horizon. Who knows? As this little artist kind of army, I'm calling it, begins to grow and support each other. It's thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been great.
Yeah, it's been awesome getting to meet you guys through your voices, but it's a good way to start. And big hug for everyone. Again, thank you for making this happen. It's been a pleasure.
Amen.
Straight up. Everyone have a great holidays. Hope you guys stay safe. Spend some time with your family and take some downtime.
Agreed.
Likewise.
Alrighty, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, all the listeners. Once again, thanks to the artist. Don't be a stranger. Reach out. Have a great, happy holidays. Maybe tune in next week when I get some couple of other guests on next week and whatnot. And also, I just want to keep getting guests back as well. So it's not a one-off thing. Like,
put Steven Vinyl on.
I love it. Yeah, guys, just reach out, come back, come home. And make sure you let me know what projects are dropping on your sides and whatever you're up to, and we can just kind of have a chat and drink a virtual beer together. Cheers, as guys. Thanks so much, and Merry Christmas and all that jazz.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, man.
Cheers. Peace.
Cheers.
See you guys. No worries.